Okay.
Welcome to Evangelical-ish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American Evangelical Church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. Join us for these episodes live on our Evangelical-ish YouTube page on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's journey together.
All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Evangelical-ish Season 3 is back, and I'm Paul.
I'm April.
And I'm Jeremy.
We didn't set the order today. We're out of practice, but Season 3 is on the air, and we had 18 of you waiting before we even came on the live stream. So thank you for being here and not forgetting about us over the last couple of weeks. And April is back from her jaunt with all the TikTok queens out there, and so excited to be with you on Evangelical-ish for another season of talking about culture from an evangelical-ish standpoint.
Yes.
Good to see you guys again.
It's so good to see y'all. Just to explain what you just mentioned, I went and met with 3 other deconstruction, faith, evangelical-ish people from TikTok the last couple days, and it honestly just made me more excited about whenever we plan something with evangelical-ish community. So it's like we got to do that so we can all get together.
Well, let's say hello to Chris. He says he's binged all the podcast episodes, but his first live stream.
Welcome, Chris.
Awesome, Chris.
Good to see you, Chris. All right. Yeah. Well, Jeremy, you're going to kick us off tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
way to get fresh off all your superstardom of appearing on like Today Show and Newsweek and being the big star here.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's been pretty wild, and everybody wants to be TikTok famous until you are, because whatever good stuff comes with it, there's a whole lot of other bullshit that comes with it too. I'll just get it out of the way.
Explicit already.
I'll get it out of the way.
Already explicit.
So
first curse word of Season 3.
Yeah. Throw it in early, just make sure the fastball's working, kids. So obviously this past week, evangelical-ish conversation entered into the spotlight as Matthew West came out with his incredible or not so incredible, depending on how
Definitely
you
not.
perceive it. We're open.
I will say it is catchy AF, though.
AF. Ooh. That was
couldn't
close.
say it. It got close.
I mean, but we know what you mean. So Matthew West came out with his whether you like it, whether you don't, incredible or not so incredible is what I was gonna say. Song "Modest is Hottest." Anyway, it immediately sparked debate about purity culture and modesty inside the church.
Cheesy Christian entertainment, by the way.
Yeah, cheesy Christian entertainment, all of those things coming to the forefront, and incredibly misogynistic. Yeah, that's right, Andy. And so anyway, it sparked a ton of debate that rose up about misogyny, rose up about purity culture and modesty, and obviously drew a pretty deep line in the sand, I believe, between conservative evangelicalism and those who are either identifying as deconstructing or those who are more moderate to progressive Christians. And so there was just a divide. And so in the process, I just actually still hanging here are these are the original lyrics right here
behind the
magic
scenes.
Happened.
Yeah, so that's where it happened. But anyway, so I just quickly jotted down some knockoff spoof lyrics because obviously I thought it was extremely misogynistic and really weird. And then that kind of took off, but then it inserted itself in the national conversation. And so it was like all these articles started coming out, and it's like, well, Matthew West said this, and then this pastor from Oklahoma said that. And so anyway, it has led to some really crazy things, as you can imagine, conversations across the entirety of the social media spectrum, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We've all made videos about it. We've all discussed it ad nauseum over the past couple of weeks, or past week rather, as it's kind of come to light. So it brings up obviously a very serious conversation, though, about modesty, about purity culture, about those issues inside the church. And so, I think we would be remiss not to really diagnose the heart of the issue versus, I think, Modest is Hottest, the song by Matthew West, is a symptom. And I think we really need to get to the diagnosis, which is the issue of purity culture. And so I fortunately had an opportunity to talk to Newsweek about that this week. And they did a fantastic article about it.
That was a good article.
Well, and it was really well even handed, right? Like here's this side, here's that side. And I appreciated the way the journalist handled it. She did a fantastic job. Who's from London, by the way, which was kind of crazy.
Shameless plug. They quoted a TikTok user in there, and that was me.
Yes, it was. That's right.
One TikTok user wrote, and it was my comment on your video.
My wife caught that.
Oh, she did?
She goes, yeah. My wife was like, "Oh, that's April's comment."
I know. I was like, why can't you just put my username? Come on, Newsweek. I didn't give you permission to quote me.
Yeah. Well, and that was my thing. Like when it hit on Today, I was like, y'all could have called me first. And then like when I did the interview with Newsweek, then everybody started swiping the Newsweek article, including the Blaze, and Glenn Beck's people are not kind.
No, they are not. Not if you're on this side. If you're on the other side, they love you, but not on this side.
Yeah, well, I'm on the wrong side. So
I wonder if news people just don't ask anymore, because the local news took one of my TikToks one time and put it on there, and then I got death threats, and I was like, I would have liked a heads up. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and so the same thing happened on my end when the Blaze swiped it. Everybody started going to find my email address for the church. And so instead of DMing me on TikTok or anything like that, they started direct emailing me, direct emailing our staff, saying really harmful things to our staff members, people who didn't sign up for that ride. And so it was pretty wild. It's been kind of a rough week in that sense, like for me personally, just because all the chaos. But because it's definitely come with its backlash. And then I had a video go 1 million views a couple days later, just kind of further discussing the topic. And so I think it's definitely worth dissecting tonight. And I know April, in the next segment, Paul and I just really kind of want some of your perspective, in particularly on this topic, just as it pertains to women who have grown up in that culture and kind of what this debate is doing and meaning to women in our culture right now and in our communities right now. So, but otherwise, that's kind of the rundown with the Matthew West Modest is Hottest thing.
Matthew West also, after receiving all of the backlash, took the video down everywhere. The song is still available to buy and is on Spotify, but you can't watch the video anywhere unless you screen recorded it. And he gave a non-apology apology where he was like, I'm blessed to be the father. I'm just going to read it. I'm blessed to be the father of 2 amazing daughters. I wrote a song poking fun at myself for being an overprotective dad, and my family thought it was funny. The song was created as satire, and I realized that some people did not receive it as it was intended. I've taken the feedback to heart. The last thing I want to do is distract from the real reason why I make music, to spread a message of hope and love to the world. Proud girl dad. I don't know why I read it in that voice, but
is he Russian now?
That is what we call the "I'm sorry you're offended" apology.
Yes. So everybody that I know, especially in the deconstruction community, called this out immediately. Like I made a video, Paul made a video, Jeremy, your video blew up, and then basically everyone and their mom made a video like that I saw. And what I saw from Christians. Did we lose Paul?
Uh-oh.
Paul.
I thought he changed the camera angle.
Oh no.
Something's happening.
Wait, I'm still here though. Paul, are you here?
No, he is not here. Oh no, what if he was
Paul.
the only What if he was the only saved one and
what happened,
get raptured?
I'm still learning StreamYard. It was operator error on my part. I was trying to mute the microphone so I could cough.
And I just shut yourself off?
I shut myself completely down.
Amazing.
I'm
Oh
so
my
offended
God.
at myself.
I was afraid you got raptured. And
I was
April
too.
and I were the pagans that
Like,
got left
Paul
here.
would be the one that goes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Well, he was shadow banned on TikTok, but not from God.
no,
So
that's like youth pastor voice. Like, maybe TikTok will shadow ban you, but you know who will never shadow ban you? The Father.
Jesus.
Jesus will never ban
Who's the kid
with the
that's
shadow.
like always like he looks like he's about to cry, and he's just like talking so intense like all the time.
You need
David
proof of
Ladding
that?
or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much do you have to hate your friends to not tell them about hell? You didn't tell us, Paul.
Paul. Okay.
Anyway,
I'll probably have to edit this out because that was very weird. People
Sorry,
on podcasts be like, "What the?"
That
F?
was all me. That was my fault.
No, you're fine, Paul. Anyway, so I just finished reading Matthew West in a fun voice, and what I was saying is everyone did a video about this, right?
Yes.
And the pushback that I saw the most from evangelicals was that, oh, it's just satire. He's just being funny. You guys can't take a joke. So first of all, satire is when you exaggerate something or make fun of something that you don't agree with to point out an error. Matthew West still agrees with the message, modest is hottest.
Yes.
He's saying it at the SBC convention, conference, whatever they had last week. Like I think that was where he debuted it.
Yes, it is.
So, and the SBC believes in complementarianism, which is very strict gender roles and silent women and submissive women. And so you're not going to sing a satirical song about it. Also, if it was satire, what I do is satire. When I put on my MAGA hats and pretend to be a Trump supporter, that is satire because I do not agree with what I am doing. Anyway, but also there was so much just spiritual manipulation going on in it too, of like, oh no, like he's just being funny. Like, God just wants girls to dress nicely, but there's a line and it's just fun humor and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so Matthew West gave a non-apology apology, but took his video down everywhere. But also there were videos that sparked on the other side that I saw. There was one girl, I think she took her video down because she got backlash, but she was basically saying that, yes, modest is hottest because while yes, boys and men are 100% responsible for their sexual thoughts and for their sin, girls are also 100% responsible for being sinned at, was what she said.
Oof.
And there are so many people that believe that, which, I'll go into more details about like actual purity culture later. But I think this song, I think one reason it got backlash was not necessarily about the song, but I think it brought up a lot of internalized pain and really trauma that a lot of people have. Like for me, I didn't realize I had so much just pain from purity culture until that song. And it took me a while to really address it because I was like, this is really bothering me and I don't know why. But I can talk more about it later. Paul, what did you think about it?
Well, I think Christians are crazy about sin altogether. And what we don't get is that modesty is a cultural construct that, when I was a kid, we would get the National Geographic magazine and you would see women's breast on the cover, and we're American Christian kids, like, look at the breast. But in that culture, women's breasts are not immodest, not a woman not wearing a top is no more immodest than a man not wearing a top. And so we make these things biblical and they're not. And I made a video where I said, when Adam and Eve sinned in the story in Genesis, God comes through the garden. He says, "Why are you hiding?" They said, "Because we're naked." And he said, "Who told you were naked?" Like, right. They were naked and had no consciousness that they shouldn't be naked. And then the sin of eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil creates this culture where suddenly being naked was immodest. And
Yeah.
so we think that we have this biblical standard of modesty, but it's actually not. It's a cultural standard of modesty, and placing that on young women or women at all. And
Right.
and I had a guy tell me, women are the one who get pregnant, so they have to be really. I'm just like, my God, I keep thinking the church has moved into at least the 80s. And I keep finding we're still in the 50s.
Yeah, no,
and it just pisses me off so much. And I keep saying, this is why the fucking millennials don't want to come to church anymore. Because you're more concerned about the fact that I just said fucking than we're driving people from the.
We're full on explicit here.
Come on.
It's season 3. Okay, first of all, can we also just say how creepy it is that a dad was singing to his daughters to inform them of what is hottest? Anyway,
the video was mega creepy.
They looked
mega
like,
cringy, as I can say.
They looked so miserable, like they were being held hostage.
Yeah, which I'm sure was like part of the joke, but did not land. And also I just gotta say this. I mentioned this off air, but so one of the lines in his song is, "If I catch you on the TikTok in a crop top, so help me God," whatever. He literally mentions the name TikTok in the lyrics of his song. Like TikTok is a brand, is an app. So all these people on TikTok started making songs in crop tops to that line, which was hilarious. He got all pissy pants and like took legal action against TikTok. So now every single sound that has Matthew West Modest is Hottest on TikTok like is taken down because he's not giving them the rights. He took legal action against them. How do you put TikTok in your song, which he didn't license anything from TikTok. It's like a lyric. Take the word TikTok, put it in your song, and then when that song makes it to TikTok, be like, "Oh, nope, that's mine. You can't have that."
And here comes TikTok for their royalties, right? Like they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll take your sound off of our platform, but knock knock, we'll take them Spotify dollars from you, Matthew."
Right?
West.
You said TikTok. That's us.
I just, the whole thing was, and I've talked about this a lot the last few days. As the dad to 3 girls, it was super troubling to me, just in general. Because I feel like we are so, and this is what I told the interviewer from Newsweek. I said, it's actually reverse body shaming is what it is. When you're telling your girls to cover up who they are and to cover up who God made them to be. And you're telling them to, just completely like, not feel, you're telling them don't feel beautiful. You're telling them don't be proud of who you are. Be ashamed of who you are is what that is. And that's so dangerous. And so you're actually hypersexualizing your kids when you say, "Oh, you're so attractive and sexual that boys can't control themselves."
Right.
And you're the dad saying that?
It's super problematic. And I
gross.
It's gross. The thing is, they're regurgitating what they've been taught as well, because this is not new. Honestly, I was surprised that, I guess I should have assumed that it was still prevalent in evangelical churches, because I haven't been in youth group or whatever in a while. But as someone who was taught that my whole childhood through college, because I went to Assemblies of God schools, and then a Baptist one, but the Baptist one was chill. It was not SBC. They were cool. But yeah, so I can go into what that teaching does to someone, because now I'm in my 30s and I am fully feeling the effects of what being taught that as a kid has done. And I've finally to a place where I'm still processing a lot of that, but I'm to a place now where I can verbalize some of it that I couldn't before. So I don't know if you guys want to go to a break and then we can come back and talk about it.
Well, I think it's important that we hear your perspective on that, April. And so, why don't we hit our little mid-roll and take our quick break, and we come back. Yeah, I think it would be really important for us to hear from April how purity culture has impacted a generation of women and marriages and beyond. So we'll be back on Evangelical-ish, if I can do this correctly. There we go.
Are you loving Evangelical-ish? Follow us to catch all the latest content and encouragement. You can check us out on TikTok by following @Evangelical-ish or subscribe on YouTube by searching Evangelical-ish. That's Evangelical with an ISH. And don't forget to catch our live streams each and every single Wednesday night on YouTube at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 Pacific. And now, back to the Evangelical-ish podcast.
And that's how we do that.
That was pretty smooth.
I'm almost getting it down as the producer here, so this is amazing.
Love it.
So, April, tell us. I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think your voice is obviously a voice that we need to hear when we're talking about this. And you grew up in sort of that height of the giving up dating, kissing, dating, goodbye era of purity culture, purity rings, all of that. And you talked a little bit just in the start of this that you're recognizing the trauma that caused in your life. Tell us more about that. What does that trauma feel like? What has been the impact on your life on an ongoing basis?
Yeah. So I have a history of how it affected me as a person in my 20s. So basically I had the purity ring. I was saving myself for marriage. Anytime I dated someone, that was the spiel that I would give. Like, I will not have sex with you. Like, I'm saving myself for marriage. Because I was taught that was my worth, and that a man, I mean, growing up in youth group, there were several different variations of this illustration of, and it was usually directed towards the women. And you would hear of the guys that would have sex before marriage. And it was always like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But it was also kind of coupled with, but boys will be boys, like they can't really help it. They're very visual beings. Sometimes it becomes uncontrollable. So then that comes back to the girl of, it was always putting the shame on the girl. Well, the girl should have known better. So they would always give these examples in youth group of like a chewed up piece of gum of like, they would pull out a piece of gum, like, this is you and your sexuality. And when you have sex with someone, it's like having them chew that gum, and then you take it back and you try to offer it to someone else. And like, no one's going to want that. Or the rose, the flower of every person you sleep with, it's a petal that's going away and no one's going to want a stem. Or it's the crumpled tissue paper, and you can't pull it back together and make it perfectly crisp anymore, because that's like, no one's going to want that. Or the worst one were soul ties, being taught that if you had sex before marriage, that a piece of your soul would be like, they would literally put glue between two pieces of like hearts, and then they would rip it apart and the paper would shred. And it was like, that's because your souls are now connected, and you're a piece of you will always belong to that person. So you'll never be whole. So these things were taught to you. They would also couple it with, but God forgives and there's grace, and you could be re-virginized. I knew people that would pray to be re-virginized. I had even heard that, God could restore your hymen.
Oh, like, my gosh.
My hymen
I've heard testimonies of it happening.
Right. But there were like plenty of girls like lost their hymens from tampons, It's such a dumb. Yeah. So anyway, I don't have to go into that. So this is my upbringing, and it was less with my parents. It was more in youth groups and church camps, in the separating of the guys go over here and the girls go over here. So, but for me, the hard part is when I was in college, this is a Christian college. So the guy was a Christian, supposedly, they all were. I was on a date. I gave him the whole spiel. I had been drinking, so I didn't feel comfortable to drive. I slept over on the couch, and I gave him like a 10-minute spiel of how I was a virgin and I was saving myself. And then I woke up to him doing some things. So I left. So anyway, I was assaulted, and the shame that I felt after that. Purity culture doesn't teach you about choice or consent. And so even though I did not choose to have that encounter, I felt all of that shame, and I felt that I was dirty and disgusting. And so I just kind of made up my mind. I mean, this went on for months. I hated myself, because I thought in the church, in the youth group, sex was the worst thing that you could do outside of marriage. And so I just kind of made up my mind. The next person I date, I'm just going to have sex with them, because I think it was like a power move of like, I want to be able to take some control back of my life. And if I'm going to feel this shame anyway, I might as well have sex. So I ended up dating another guy for 2 years, and I did sleep with him. But then there's always these things in the back of your head that I was taught that if you have sex before marriage, other things in your life will go badly. And so this is going to sound really extreme, but my dad got cancer and then he died. And there was a huge piece of me that thought that he wasn't healed because I had sex before marriage. And I know that like saying it out loud sounds insane, but that's how deeply ingrained.
It's not. I mean, like if you've been manipulated in such a horrific way, and that's the danger of this.
Mm-hmm.
And why it's so important to speak out, and why this story that you're telling is so important right now. And women and girls all over our country need to hear this. You may think, hindsight, stepping away from it, it sounds crazy, but when you are ingrained and indoctrinated and just covered in it, it sounds perfectly logical, which is so terrible. So anyway, I don't want you to feel like saying that sounds crazy, because you were manipulated, and that's unfair. And my heart breaks for you. That's horrible.
I appreciate that, but those were thoughts that I had that I never told anybody, but it was just like this kind of inner guilt that like, anyway, so after that, after feeling like maybe what I did caused my dad to not be healed, like God was punishing me as a way to wake me up, to bring me back into the fold, I completely shut down my sexuality. I dated some guys, but wasn't really into them. And so when Beecher and I got together, it was the first time that I kind of felt a little bit of a spark, but I was terrified of having sex before marriage. And so we didn't have sex. Beecher and I did not have sex before marriage. Like we were very, like, I was like, I'm doing it right this time. Like God's going to restore my virginity. And it was just like, I just thought like, if I do it right, then I'll have a good marriage. And like my sex life will be great in marriage, because that was what the church had told me. And they're like, God can restore and all these things. And so when Beecher and I got married, like it took years for me to enjoy sex, because it wasn't anything Beecher did or didn't do. It was just that I felt like I was his object. And like as a wife, it was like my duty to serve him. And also sexuality is not a switch. And I had shut it off.
Yeah.
And had already felt so much shame from it. So I couldn't just flip it back on. But then I felt so much guilt for not being able to turn it on. And honestly, the first several years of our marriage, like sex was the biggest issue that we had, like that we fought over it, because he didn't fully understand. He did understand, but he also didn't. And I didn't fully understand either, because I was like, I don't know why I don't want to have sex with you. Like I want to have sex with you, but there's something deep within me that feels pain and shame when we do it, and I can't explain it. And then I would feel guilty of like, okay, well, the reason why our sex life isn't working is because I had sex before marriage.
Oh my goodness.
So it was this cycle of shame,
circular shame.
Yeah. And confusion. And I didn't know what to do. And even outside of just our marriage, I've realized after this last week with Matthew West, with his song, it just brought up a lot of stuff in me. I realized that I still to this day am constantly aware of how modest I am. Like my first thought when I put something on and I look in the mirror, if my midriff is showing or if like a shoulder is showing, like my first thought is like, oh my gosh, a man could see this and sexualize me. Even though like, and then I turn it off. I'm like, no, I am not a sexual object. Like I can wear what I want to wear, like no matter how well I feel. So like, I know I'm to the point now where I recognize these thoughts as a result of purity culture, and I can try to shut them down, but it's still ingrained in me enough that I initially will be like, oh shoot, I just caused a man to stumble and sexualize me. And now like his sin is my fault. So anyway, that's like the quick version of how it's personally affected me. But I know purity culture also affects guys, because they're almost taught that they can't control themselves, like they're animals.
Yes.
And so it's a double-edged sword. It really harms everybody.
And there's a defense for you put in place by the system, right? Of, well, you're just being a man. You're a sexual being. Like, I even had somebody comment on one of my TikTok videos this week, that basically, like, how can you expect men to control themselves? Their primitive nature is to want to have sex with women. And, so what they wear, and even their red lipstick, like he said something about red lipstick or something, is a sign of sex. And I just responded and I said, no, a sign of sex is consent.
Yeah.
And so, little boys, listen here. We need to talk. Stop it. You need to stop it. Own your crap and own up to the fact that your eyes are your eyes and your heart is your heart and your lustful desires are your lustful desires. It is your sin downfall. It is your mistake. It is not hers. It doesn't matter what she's wearing. If she is walking down the street naked, your eyes are still your eyes. Your heart is still your heart, and your lust is still your lust. Point blank, period. End of discussion. Men, start taking accountability for your actions. And I feel shame because there's a lot of your story, April, that really resonates with me here, because my wife and I actually had this conversation just here a couple of weeks ago, spurred on by the podcast that the four of us did together with you and Beecher, April. The fact that we have been married for over 12 years and our sex life has only been enjoyable probably in the last year.
Yeah.
And because for the first half of our marriage, it was a point of contention, because my wife did save herself for marriage out of that culture, right? Like she had been indoctrinated and infiltrated with all of that. So she was very adamant about that was going to be something that she did. But the breakthrough is they tell you it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. You're a slut. If you do it, it's horrible. It's nasty. It's disgusting. Oh, you're married. You're going to love it. And how can you take a brain in its most formative state and say, bad, 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 you're disgusting, you're nasty, don't do that. And then ask them after those formative years, as an adult who has already been programmed to think that this is horrible, wicked, mean, nasty, and disgusting, to now enjoy it, and to enjoy it any time that your husband says he wants it. That has to change. That mentality has to change. And church, if we are going to start having better conversations about sex, we need to start having better conversations about how purity culture has hurt people. It is ruining relationships.
Let me jump in. I feel like we need to take a moment and say, April, thank you for sharing this. And not rush by that. And I haven't been putting the comments up on the screen, but just because people are sharing very vulnerable stuff, that you have provided space for people to be vulnerable and share. So thank you for that vulnerability. And, I feel like I want to say, I'm sorry. And I know, of course, your response would be like, well, it's not your fault, but so much of what I do these days, and again, it's not about me, and I almost want to pinch myself from saying something stupid like that, but I just feel like I want to stand in for the church and just say, I'm sorry. And that was so wrong what happened to you. And it's not your fault, and it's real. And and I dropped an F-bomb before because it makes me so mad that the church does this. It's not like it's a little bit wrong. It's so bad. And we're seeing the impact on you and others in the feed saying, I still can't enjoy sex in my marriage. And it's just so wrong.
That's why I think seeing someone make a joke about modest is hottest, and just that whole idea that a woman needs to clothe herself in a way that protects men is just really triggering for people
Yeah.
that have already grown up in that are dealing with the effects and having to unlearn the toxic idea. I mean, it's objectification of women.
Yeah.
But not just women.
Yeah.
I think Dennis in the chat said that as a gay man, it's really affected him too, which I would love to hear that story too. But it's affected. Purity culture does so much harm, and I feel like the original intent was probably just like, hey, let's get these kids to stop sleeping around. I don't know what the intent was, but I was just talking about this with my TikTok friends over the weekend. But intent does not negate impact.
Right.
But
honestly, I don't think the intent was good. I mean, I think the intent is because we're terrified of sex. We've talked about this on Evangelicalish before. And I keep saying the Bible's not terrified of sex. Why are we? Even in the story of David and Bathsheba, they had Solomon and he turned out to be the greatest king. So the Bible is not nearly as afraid of sexuality as the Western puritanical church is. Right. We have built that as a culture and it's damaging to people. And we need to be held responsible for doing something that I believe is anti-biblical that's really hurting people.
Well, the other thing that's harmful too, I don't know if this was part of Dennis's experience, but it's almost expected of men to sexualize women. They tell you not to do it. But if a man doesn't sexualize women, then that man has a problem. And they're like, oh, well, what's wrong with him if he's not sexualizing this woman? Like, that's what we do. And so there's like this almost reverse shame that boys almost feel empowered to sexualize women, because if they're not, then, oh, I don't want people to think, which, in the church, you want people to think you're gay or whatever. It's just, it's bad all the way around. And it just tantalizes sex too. It makes it like the forbidden fruit that adds the shame, like, why do you think you're naked? Because we took the forbidden fruit. So it like makes you want the forbidden fruit. I actually was reading earlier of a study that said, it was like a medical study that basically compared groups of teenagers and college age kids, those that took purity pledges and those that didn't. And there was no difference on whether or not they had sex before marriage. So,
well, what's interesting is so, I grew up in purity culture. I had a purity ring, it was the thing where you're supposed to trade it for your wedding ring at your wedding, that whole thing or whatever. And I think what's fascinating is, my wife talked a lot about how, her friends were like, we will never do that. That is, it's so bad. And then I remember like being like just made fun of horribly because I was like, no, I'm not going to have sex or whatever. And so guys are like, well, you're supposed to have sex. Like, this is what you do. And if you don't do it, then it means this, this, and this. And it's like, our world has just created such a stigma around it. And it's been driven by toxic purity culture. And so, kind of going back to what I was mentioning earlier, I think the church has to have better, more realistic, open, honest conversations if they want to be taken seriously on the topic of sex.
Well, and also growing up, I was only ever talked about
and not misogynistic
men's pleasure, never women's pleasure. Good like I was never even told that like I could be pleasured. It was always about, oh, when you grow up, you're going to find the man, you're going to be a lovely wife and you're going to please him and you're going to pleasure him. And that's going to be your role. And it was like good wives please their husbands. Yeesh. There was never any talk about, oh, and you could be pleased too. So real quick, because I know that we'll probably need to move on, but there's, I know so many people that have reached out to me for resources that helped me kind of unlearn a lot of this and get to where I have a healthy sex life, which Beecher and I, it's honestly still a struggle at times, but it's like light years ahead of it. So there's this book called Come As You Are. like an intent, like come intended. I probably should. I probably didn't have to say that. But it's Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. And that one, it just talks about all about women's sexuality, and it's very open, and that one does amazing. But the second thing that did the most for me, well, counselor too, to unpack all of this, a sex therapist. I went to someone who specializes in sex therapy too, so that was helpful. And then also being open with your spouse about it so that they know where you're coming from. But I mean, that we were open about it for a long time too, and it took a while. So I'm delaying this because I feel awkward about saying it. But the best thing that worked for me was a vibrator. So now that you guys are both blushing, yeah. So purity culture basically kept me from being able to be pleasured, and vibrator opened that all up. So if you don't have one of those, I can recommend a couple.
I don't think we should be embarrassed by that, because I think it's one of the things that the church's view of sex does is, so I had sex before marriage, knew I was a terrible person, and so then it's just like, well, screw it, and just screw everybody I can find because I'm a horrible, terrible person going to hell. What it takes away is, and I get a lot of people ask me, is this right or wrong? And I say, let's stop talking about right or wrong, and let's talk about why. Young man, you're struggling with pornography. Instead of saying you're a horrible person, cut off your hands, gouge out your eyes, let's just talk about why. What is the hole that you're trying to fill? And so I think young men and young women were never taught the idea of pursuing healthy relationship that led to good sex. That me knowing who I am and having a self-identity that deserves to have pleasure and then wants to bring pleasure to my partner would help us do this better and know this better. And the just say no takes away the why and what's missing and what hole are you filling by rousting around sexually with a bunch of different partners. And to me, God's not about have sex or don't have sex. It's about why are you doing this in relationship, and what violation of relationship are you doing? Are you using somebody to try to fill a hole in yourself in an unhealthy way that is going to maybe make an unhealthy tie that you're going to have to work through, instead of teaching us, let's go after this in a healthy way. And sex can be really amazing. Sex is actually a really incredible creation of humanity and a wonderful celebration of our connection together. And so let's just start to talk about why and how rather than yes or no.
Yes.
I think that's such a really great point. And I think that what is unfortunate is that, just like I shared earlier in April, you shared this as well, just beautifully, but it's really sad that couples who grew up in this culture aren't able to experience each other and to express love to one another in a passionate and mutual and incredible way, because they've got to sift through all the shame and the hurt and the pain that comes with it from that toxic purity culture. And so anyway, April, I want to give you the last word before we change topics.
Oh, well, if you're out there and you're dealing with purity culture or you have sexual shame, it is not your fault. And Jesus doesn't want you to feel shame, no matter what the church says. This is actually, I'll say this. One of the things that brought healing to me early on when I was dealing with a lot of shame was I went to a Beth Moore event. I still love me some Beth Moore.
Absolutely.
And she was talking about sexual shame, and she's been very open with her experience. But she said that shame is Satan's laughter in the form of a human emotion. So that when you're feeling shame, that is not divine. That is not from God. You are worthy and you are valued, and it does not matter who you sleep with or who you love. The church needs to stop being obsessed with sex. That's it.
And can I lighten it up just a little bit?
Please do.
Missionary is not the only legal position.
Oh, Paul. That's right.
Or maybe that's wrong. I don't know.
Nope.
Maybe you guys don't agree with that, but I believe there are other sexual positions
spice up that sex
that
life.
God approves of. Yeah.
I think one of the most healing things for me too was like not taking sex so seriously. Like sometimes my husband and I would just like try things and we're like, it totally does not work, but we're laughing about it. Like it doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be serious. It doesn't need to be like, I don't know. It's just, you can have fun with it. So.
But that's like it. That's the thing. Is the beauty of it is that it's a broad spectrum of emotions that you get to share with somebody you're really passionate about.
Yeah,
and that's what's great. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's really intimate. You know, like all of those things, right? And that's it's just about that experience. And so anyway, I think I think it matters. But April, I'm
Evangelicalish after dark. I'm sorry.
Yeah, April, thank you for your vulnerability and just sharing your heart and your story with us tonight and everybody who's listening and everybody's going to listen on the podcast later because it's a powerful story, and I hope and I know that it will impact some young women who are walking through similar feelings or seasons, or maybe it keeps them from having to walk through that. That would be a great thing too. But anyway, super grateful.
This is an interesting comment from our friend Abby. And sometimes it's something you share with someone you're not passionate about, and that's okay too.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a tough one for some Christians out there, I guarantee you.
What isn't tough for some Christians out there?
Yeah.
Okay, do we need to talk about flags? And I said flags. Just want to That's terrible. I should have said that. The American flag, because that's our next topic. That was a terrible segue.
And so the American flag. And we should run. Let's run a mid roll real quick.
Yes.
Okay, just to have a break.
Pause. Yeah, and then on the other side, we're going to talk about flags.
There we go.
American flag.
Are you loving Evangelical-ish? Follow us to catch all the latest content and encouragement. You can check us out on TikTok by following @Evangelical-ish or subscribe on YouTube by searching Evangelical-ish. That's Evangelical with an ISH. And don't forget to catch our live streams each and every single Wednesday night on YouTube at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 Pacific. And now, back to the Evangelical-ish podcast.
So when I was in college, some people don't know, I was a sports broadcaster, but in college I was a DJ. And for a while I worked at a country music station, and I despise country music passionately, by the way, but just as an aside. And this horrible song came out that year that was DJing that kept getting requested over and over and over again. And it goes something like this. Tell me if you've heard it before. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. Amen, brothers and sisters.
Preach, hallelujah, hallelujah, feel the spirit of the flag.
This being the July 4th weekend, we will hear that song in many churches, I believe, this weekend.
And all the flags, all the American flags.
So what did you got there, Jeremy?
A little rebellion now and then is a good thing.
Oh, okay.
A little T-Jeff.
Yeah, a little T-Jeff right here.
So we will see many American flags, many American tributes, American patriotic songs will be sung. I was even at an event, a city event here in Fresno this weekend, and the national anthem was playing, and the two people in front of me raised their hands in worship while the national anthem was playing. I kid you not. It was absolutely a fact.
Cool.
When did the national anthem become a worship song? And when did national holidays become worship services? And is this, and I'll ask you, Jeremy, first, as somebody who's still on staff at a church, is it appropriate for America to be, I'm saying worshiped, maybe that, but should we elevate national holidays to worship services in our church services?
Well, I think, you just kind of have to think through that for a second and kind of no, okay. Like, I mean, are these people crazy? Like, I'm sorry, but the nationalism thing has got to go away. It's got to go away. Like, and I had a follower send me a really great question in my DMs the other day, which I kind of want to do a video on over the July 4th weekend. First off, we do not play patriotic music at our church. Period.
Good for you.
Because why? Because it's about Jesus, not America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First off. And, but I had a really great question asked. It was, one of my followers, a woman of color, and she said, what do you make of the fact that, that everybody wants to make such a big deal about July 4th and about independence for our country, but that we can't get that same excitement, about Juneteenth. And I thought it was a really fair question because it was like, man, we still just don't get it. I really struggle with the worshiping of a nation, the worshiping of a flag. Like none of it makes sense to me. None of it is biblical at all, not even close. It doesn't matter if you take every word in the Bible, literally page for page, word for word, you're still not going to see God bless America. Like it's just not there.
Nope.
And so I don't understand it. And I don't know why it's become synonymous with conservative evangelical Christianity that it's America first and it's God, guns and glory and, all of this stuff. And
it's Christian to be patriotic.
No, it's not.
Crazy.
It's Christian to Christian.
But it's so synonymous now. I like what Lori put in the chat. She said, sometimes to be a good Christian, you have to be a bad American.
Actually, to be a good Christian, you have to be a bad American at this point.
Yeah.
Like I don't really see a ton of wiggle room anymore because it's like it just.
I think it's fair to say you can be patriotic and love your country. I don't think it's necessarily anti-Christ. It's when that patriotism becomes intertwined with your Christianity, when nationalism. I think when you read the story of Jesus and his interaction with the Pharisees, and he talked about the leaven of the Pharisees, this is what he was talking about, that they believed the Messiah was going to appear, and what the Messiah would do is he was going to overthrow the Roman government and put their religion back in charge of the government so that then God's plan could be carried out on earth. And so their belief system of their religion, their nationality, and their race was very much tied together. And I think Jesus was demonstrating like, no, we're going to love the Samaritans too. And then with Peter, it's like, you're going to love the Romans too. And so when we wrap our theology with our ideology, I think really bad things happen, and it makes Jesus very unhappy.
The problem is we've made America our God and we worship an American God. I went to a Michael W. Smith concert a couple years ago because my mom wanted me to go with her, and which, nothing wrong with Michael W. Smith. But I got so mad while sitting there because towards the end of the concert, he sang the song that he wrote about 9/11, like "There She Stands" or whatever. It's a song about the American flag. And I am not telling you, I'm not kidding you when I say that song got the biggest standing ovation of all of the worship songs of the whole night. And while he was singing about the flag, there were literally people worshiping their hands, and like everyone stood up during the song. And I purposely stayed seated because like, what the crap, Michael W. Smith and fans? Because it'd be one thing if they were standing up for the whole concert. This was the only song that everyone stood up for. So anyway, so that made me annoyed. Also, people are like, they literally worship the flag. And I realized that this week because I made a dumb TikTok about telling a story about my 4-year-old which is the true story. My 4-year-old came up to me about a week or so ago and asked me if she could play with my Dumbo Trump flag. Which she called him Dumbo Trump when she was 3 because she couldn't say Donald Trump, and I just never corrected her. So she asked me if she could play with my Dumbo Trump flag, and I said, I don't have a Dumbo Trump flag. And she goes, yes, you do, this one. And she waved our American flag at me.
Oh my
so she
goodness.
thought that was the Trump flag. And so I just made a TikTok on how I kind of thought that was profound. Like, did he ruin the flag for anybody else? That video got posted on conservative Instagram, of all places, somehow.
Oh, good.
And I was getting hundreds of, it wasn't on my video because I didn't share that one on my Instagram. It was like someone else posted it. And so someone tagged me in it. So I was reading the comments. They're saying that I don't have any kids. I was lying about it. I was on my 3rd abortion, that no man would touch me. Like,
Oh my God.
like insane, like awful things
Yeah.
that I looked like I smoked crack, that, like so much hatred. And all I said was, like, I just questioned if the flag is really the flag. Like, man, these people love their flag.
It's terrible too, because I love the flag too. I love American history, and it really has made the flag a little bit toxic for me. When I go by houses that have American flags flying now, I can't help but just, and I hate that. I hate that it's made these symbolic of Trump rather than symbolic of the ideals of our country. It's crazy.
It has, and I think that obviously it's not just harming the country, but I think it's also made the church at times, especially the conservative evangelical church, it's made it unapproachable for so many people. And because it's tinfoil hat crazy time. It's freaking Greg Locke,
Oh my gosh.
And
who's gone full QAnon, by the way, from the pulpit.
That clip you ran the other day of him is not, but I hate to even talk about him. He's so off the cliff.
He's a nutcase. But also, by the way, quick passing note. Did you see our buddy Nathan Rager got arrested?
Oh my gosh. I saw your video on that.
Yeah.
I did not see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I hate to laugh because it's such a terrible story, and assaulting his wife with his child there. My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. She was holding their 2-year-old. But there's another guy who's, God, guns, and glory or whatever. And it just, it has created such a toxic culture that it's impossible for it to be salvaged at times, I think, which is sad. But, as Christians, I just encourage people to remember all the time when I'm talking to folks who are Christians or, followers of Jesus, that the thing to remember here is that every major empire through history has risen and fallen within 250 years-ish, right? Some have lasted longer, some shorter, but major empires aren't the world power forever, right?
Right.
They come and they go. As someone who believes passionately in the kingdom of God, it's eternal. And Jesus' love is good forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so why am I going to put my faith in something finite? Why am I going to put my hope in something finite? Why am I going to put my trust and my love and my passion in something finite when I can trust something greater? And I just don't know why we've disconnected those things.
Well, I think that's one thing that I've been realizing too, as part of my faith deconstruction, because my Christianity growing up in conservative evangelicalism was very conflated with my patriotism. And so I've also been deconstructing my patriotism kind of right alongside, and just kind of realizing some hard truths about our country that aren't necessarily something to celebrate. And I think what I'm realizing too is, like, I love my country and I'm thankful that I live here. And I can appreciate the people that have gone before me to make this country what it is, while at the same time realizing that we still have a lot of messed up policies in place, and that we've done a lot of harm in the name of liberty. And but liberty for really white white men early on. And I mean, and we literally committed genocide against indigenous people.
Literally
Did that. Yeah. And we're celebrating, which I don't know. I have a hard time with it. It's hard for me to look at the flag the same way that I used to, because one, I was just more ignorant back then and didn't know. I knew, but it was whitewashed, everything was we actually made it better for these people. A few people died, but in the end, their people are better off. Look at the Native Americans. They have casinos now. Stupid crap. And just realizing no, that's really crappy. And we should be able to acknowledge that and not just America can do no wrong.
We should be able to kind of view it through the lens that I think was so well articulated. I was watching an interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda because I love Broadway and Hamilton is the dopest. Anyway, I think he did a really good job articulating the fact that he said, look, it's really important to remember that our founding fathers and that the architects of this country were geniuses in their own right. And that they created infrastructure that could last beyond them. And they did amazing things, but they don't come without baggage and problems and stuff that just is pretty gross. So, you got the Thomas Jeffersons of the world that say fun things like, a little rebellion now and then is a good thing and writes the Declaration of Independence, but also has a really disgusting relationship with Sally Hemings and his slaves. And, is kind of a gross dude in that way. I think that we need to be able to appreciate the history of our country for the good without forgetting to remember that we have a lot of black eyes in our history as well, a ton. And that's the reason I've said several times, I don't think we need to make America great again. I would love to see us make America great for the first time.
For all people.
For all people.
Actually have liberty and justice for all.
For all.
For some.
And not for all, but you know what we mean.
And right. For the world. And let's be benevolent for the world, not just for our own self-interest.
My favorite thing are these Trumpers who are flipping out because we're sending vaccines to other countries.
Oh, it's crazy.
Right? But you won't take it.
Taking it.
You're the one saying I'm not going to take that microchip. They ain't going to track me. Hang on, let me look that up on my iPhone real quick. No irony there.
They get their stupid little key and they're like, it's sticking to my neck.
It's sticking to my neck. Yeah.
Look, it's stuck.
But then they get mad. They're like, I'm not taking that, Joe Biden vaccine, whatever. And then they get mad about that, but then they get mad that we send it to other countries. Why are we helping other countries? You don't even think it's a help. You think it's a tracking device. So what do you care what we do with it?
The dumbest thing is they're like, I'm not taking Joe Biden's vaccine, but then they're like, Trump was the one that gave us the vaccine.
Yeah, Operation. What was it? Yeah, pick a struggle. Yeah, that's really good. What was it? Operation
Warp Speed.
Warp Speed. All I could think of was Fast and Loose.
Isn't it great that Trump did that? But don't take it. But don't take it. And it's these types of things that bring that cognitive dissonance.
Antichrist.
The first commandment is don't have graven images or no idols. And when we elevate things, like I've been talking about the Bible this week, when we elevate the Bible to an idol, or when we elevate the country to an idol, we can no longer have reasonable conversation around it. And yes, America in many ways has been a wonderfully benevolent capitalist dictatorship over the world. And we've done some good things in that and some not so good things. But when we elevate it to an idol that we worship in our churches on national holidays, we lose our ability to live in the tension of, and we've done some really horrific things that we need to be honest about so we don't do them again. We put American citizens into camps for looking Japanese. And we need to say that can never ever happen again.
But I mean, and it has been, I mean, you can just look at the entire history of our country. It started out with the massacring and genocide of Native Americans. It continued as we brought slaves into this country and we built the foundation. Listen, America was a great idea and the infrastructure of America was a great idea, but it was built on the backs of slaves. And that's disgusting.
And by the way, Joe Biden threw a few drone missiles around this week. And I think we just need to look at all of this of like, how long do we continue to bombard the Middle East for our own self-interest?
Right.
And is it accomplishing anything good for the kingdom of heaven when we do so?
Well, and just the whole idea too, I see so many Christians that are really buying into America first, America first. I'm like, if you are actually a follower of Jesus, you are not America first. Like, you should just be for humanity. It should not matter if they are American or not. Because for God so loved the world, he didn't so love America.
Anyway. Jonah said, I don't want to live in a world, God, where you will have mercy on our enemies. Where you will have mercy on Nineveh. I would rather be dead than you have mercy on our enemies. Yeah, Lord, and that is the America first attitude.
Lord, I knew you were gonna spare them. Yeah. I would rather be dead.
We need a big whale to come swallow up America.
America.
Well,
we have too many of those people in the world. God, don't have mercy on those people.
Yeah.
They don't deserve it.
So much othering. It's so much, even especially in churches.
Well, I think this is probably we're going to say something on this topic, April. Sorry.
No, I was going to say we should move on to hate comment.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay,
All right, good. So cool. Yes. So anyway, I think this is a great place to transition into hate comment of the week. It's going to be fascinating. Mine is an email. And so, by the way, people are absolutely insane. When you go viral and
people are very insane,
catch some attention, then people are like just tinfoil hat crazy.
You probably had so much material to choose from for the week.
I have insane amounts of material.
You just save them for the next few weeks.
It's wild. But the craziest thing is like some of the most like insane stuff came into my email for my for the church account because people found our church and found my email and started bombarding me with,
Before you jump into the content of that, I just want to say I put our TikTok address there at Evangelicalish. Follow our page there and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're here. If you haven't subscribed, and share all our stuff with everybody.
Give us 5 stars if you listen on Apple.
Come on.
Hey, come on. All right. Anyway, so yes, so there's plenty of great stuff, and actually my runner-up this week is tell your daughters to quit acting like sluts. If that tells you anything, that is my
runner. My gosh, what won first place then?
Oh well, we will see here soon. Paul, what do you got?
Mine is to commit a sin in your mind is to commit that sin in your heart. Therefore, you, preacher, are guilty of murder as if you actually pulled the trigger. I'm not totally sure what that means, but it doesn't sound good. I'm guilty of murder because I committed a sin in my mind in my TikTok post. What
was your video about?
It was a video about how the Bible has contradictions and we should be honest about the contradictions in the Bible.
Yeah, obviously that equates murder.
That's committing murder.
You know what though? That person is also wrong though because they were murdered at.
Murdered at.
Yeah, because they, that's the whole thing is just so stupid.
Well, this is my number one troll right now, so he just is finding ways to troll me.
One troll. You are you are guilty of murder, Paul. You've murdered my heart. I love you. So anyway, April, what do you got? What was your hate comment of the week? I'm sure you've got some juicy ones.
So many to choose from. Some that are like just like so mean that they're not even funny. It has nothing to do with anything. But I got this one. So this was also part of conservative TikTok. Some conservative person, her username is Florida Princess for Trump, if that gives you any idea. She put my video in a story, and I'll show the people that are watching, but she put giant loser over my face. You see that?
That's
whoa.
I screenshotted it. She just put a giant loser.
Insane.
And the bottom, this is what the text says at the bottom of it. She mentioned me, so that's how I saw it.
That's kind.
The only Dumbo we see is you, April of Joy. This is literally child abuse. Trump didn't ruin any flag. Y'all's hate for America is sickening. Sad you're teaching your daughter this behavior. So because my daughter called the American flag the Dumbo Trump flag, that is child abuse.
Child abuse. Wow.
Well, that's
It's very special.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how it plays out for him. That's so wild.
That's like Tucker Carlson when he said that if you see a child in a mask, that's child abuse.
Yeah, I'm like, Tucker.
They do not know what child abuse is.
Shut your dumb mouth, Tucker Carlson. Golly. He has a very, listen, we need a running board on this, by the way. Who has the most punchable face? Tucker Carlson has to be up there. Like, Tucker Carlson has a punchable face.
I would say
Ted
Matt
Cruz.
Gates. Oh, Ted Cruz.
Oh, Matt Gates.
Gates
Yeah.
has a really
both of those are
punchable face.
really good. And Tom Cotton from Arkansas. I feel like Tom Cotton has a really punchable
and so
face.
just to not be sexist, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
for sure.
That's
sure.
fair. That's fair.
I would not hit her, but that's, hey, April.
I'll take it.
I'll take her. I'll hold her. I mean, like, I can hold her.
that Tucker Carlson and there's a guy I love on TikTok named Your Pal Austin, and
he's amazing.
He just made a song called "Nobody Cool Likes Tucker Carlson," which is an incredible song. But yes, Tucker Carlson, when he gets that just, I can't believe what I'm talking about face, you just want to punch that son of a bitch as hard as you can. I tell you, yeah.
There's some guy on TikTok that does a
punchable
mean
face.
Tucker Carlson impression. It's really funny. I don't remember his name, but it's like, da-da. Like he does it, and he also has this concerned face when he's waiting for the person. Like, he just looks like dumbfounded the whole time. Which, sorry to the podcasters, you can't see my facial expression. I was trying to imitate Tucker Carlson. With this, anyway. Jeremy,
Yeah.
what was your hate comment of the week? I'll Tucker Carlson impression while you tell us.
Is it really cheese pizza? If you don't have mozzarella? Like, that's the pentameter, right?
Yeah.
Like,
He's
that's
like,
the
the left will have you think
da-da-da-da.
that mozzarella is the epitome of what makes a pizza.
Yeah. But anytime he says something that he feels like is like really controversial, or like he said some stuff, he ends it up on an upward inflection, right? Like, sorry.
Oh yeah, he's like kind of talks. He's like, because
Da-da.
mozzarella is about to be a part of the pizza. The pizza?
Yeah, everything's like a question. Yeah, it's so good. Okay, hate email of the week for me.
Oh, email. Okay.
Yes, it is. So this Lane B sends me an email, which been verified. We found out who he was, but anyway, so he said, "You're a panty-waisted, poor excuse of a man. Basically, if a boy comes to your daughter on a date wearing a banana hammock, you'd be okay with it. Might as well pass him a rubber and tell him, go get her, tiger. Your daughter can wear whatever she wants. So why can't we wear that? You woke people need to wake up and grow a backbone or brush your teeth with buckshot."
What? Was that a sentence? Was that woke people need to wake up is my favorite sentence.
Or, woke people need to wake up or brush your teeth with buckshot.
What is that?
That so
What
trigger
buckshot?
warning, just for anybody, like, to be fair, it means to shoot yourself in the face.
Oh, okay.
Like, buckshot is what comes out of a shotgun.
That's awful. I didn't know that. I shouldn't have been doing my Tucker Carlson face for that, because that's awful. People are the worst.
Yeah. So basically, he's like,
over modest is hottest. So stupid.
So have some guy show up looking disgusting to take your daughter on a date, and you just hand him a condom, no big deal, because you clearly don't care about your kids. And why don't you go shoot yourself in the face while you're at it?
Oh my
That was
gosh!
the gist of it.
What
So
a
it was real good.
douchebag.
Yeah, no, but see, the thing that really bothered me was my favorite thing about this whole thing and by favorite, I mean least favorite, is these people who want to defend modesty while taking shots at my daughters. They want to sexualize my daughters while they tell me I'm wrong about modesty.
It's so stupid.
Go figure that shit out. That makes no sense.
People they're just angry inside and they're hateful and they mask around as Christians, but I can't imagine that they actually have the love of Jesus in their heart. It's religion. It's religion that makes people hold on to ideals that make them feel better about themselves.
But you're talking about a 3, a 4, and a 7-year-old. What you're talking about.
It is awful. I don't understand. It's part of the reason why I'm deconstructing, because while that is terrible and that is awful, that is not a one-off. Like, I receive terrible comments and messages, which, I mean, bringing your children into it is awful, which people brought my children into it a lot this week, actually, which I didn't read those because those pissed me off.
Shovels on
But yeah, but like, these people, they don't have shame. And like, I've seen people on conservative TikTok or videos make videos and posts that I clearly disagree with and I think are stupid. I have never once reported them or gone after their kids or left them a mean comment. I might just say, like, if I do comment, I'm like, I understand why you're saying this because I used to think that way and blah, 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 blah. Like, I try to be diplomatic about it, which usually never works. But regardless, I'm not a dick. I said dick. I'm not a dick about it. But anyway,
so proud of you.
I feel like I do have to say this because Rachel just commented that she's brokenhearted that I didn't talk about our getaway, which I mentioned it at the top of the show, Rachel.
She did mention it, yeah.
But anyway, so I did just do a little rendezvous with Rachel, Abby, and Lindsay from TikTok.
With Beham Blue Dot,
that Abby Smith, and that one girl, Rachel. Yeah. And we hung out in Knoxville, and we spent the night jamming out to Carmen and DC Talk.
I saw that on a live. I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are playing Carmen right now?
Carmen, the song America Again.
We need God in America again.
We hope.
For America is Jesus.
It was amazing. We got the MAGA hat out. I had my ladybug. We practiced wearing it while we sang America Again. And my favorite line of that whole song is, stop handing out condoms and start handing out the word of God in schools. Right into the chorus. Carmen. Oh, may he rest in peace, though, because he has passed.
Oh, did he pass away?
Yeah,
he did. Last year, I think, from cancer.
How about that? Can I show you guys this Tucker Carlson video?
Please.
This is
Can
your
you figure it out? Are you going to rapture us?
I don't know. Let's see. We'll see if you can hear it. Here we go.
Be no different from your response to seeing someone beat a kid in Walmart.
Call the police immediately.
This guy's so clever.
Nobody cool like Tucker Carlson. Nobody cool like Tucker Carlson. Nobody cool like Tucker Carlson. If you like Tucker Carlson, then you're not cool. Cause nobody cool like Tucker Carlson. Only a fool like Tucker Carlson. Nobody cool like Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is the word. Maniac, sociopath, white supremacist, fear-generating mouth with an emphasis on lies and misinformation. That infuriating look on
There's the face right there.
That's the one.
Well, anyway, you get the point of it, but that is your pal,
the face.
Archer. That was the face.
He always looks just dumbfounded.
Cheese on the pizza.
And it is a punchable face,
good.
That's for sure.
Nobody cool like Tucker Carlson.
That's going to be stuck. That's a brain worm for sure.
And then he'll just leave it out like, does anybody ask why the sky is blue? Has anybody asked why the sky is blue?
True.
And then he'll just go out, and it's like, why isn't anybody asking that?
It's so tough.
Marjorie Taylor Greene says that the wildfire started with Jewish space lasers. But Joe Biden wants you to take a vaccine. Which do you think is worse?
My favorite thing that ever happened was when he interviewed Matt Gaetz. Did y'all see it?
God.
Like right when the news
Oh,
dropped that he
yeah.
was under investigation, and Matt Gaetz was like, "Well, Tucker, like you knew," and Tucker was like, "Oh no, we're gonna take a break because I didn't know. I did not know that, and I don't know why you would bring me into that." It was like abort.
My favorite thing is all that stuff was swirling at the same time. We got insurrection garbage that like they wouldn't do the January 6th commission. We got Marjorie Taylor Greene talking crazy mess. We got Matt Gaetz, like doing cocaine with strippers and having affairs and
Underage
potentially
girls.
running also a part of a sex trafficking ring, right? I think I heard that as well. And what do the Republicans decide to do during that week? They look at all of those problems and they go, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take Liz Cheney out of her leadership positions. Boom, it'll fix the whole problem.
Solved.
Yeah. I'm like, you have Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and an insurrection on your hands, and you're worried about Liz Cheney? Like,
that's called a redirect. I do that with my kids when they are upset that they don't have a toy. I'm like, but look at this shiny toy over here.
Yeah,
and I think the Matt Gaetz defense is, but they really looked 18. They really do look 18.
They can look any age you think they look like, but you know what? The facts don't care about your feelings, Matt Gaetz. There you go.
Facts over feelings.
Exactly.
That's what Lori in the comments said. Her favorite thing about Tucker Carlson is that Fox News won a lawsuit by arguing that no sane person would believe that he's a reliable source for information.
Stop.
Yeah, they actually, Fox News, that's how they won their argument. They say, well, no one would actually listen to Tucker. No sane person.
Sidney Powell's defense in court, Trump's lawyer, the fraudulent election lawyer, same defense in the courtroom. No reasonable person would have believed what Sidney was saying. And I just don't know how Christians, no reasonable person would believe anything said on Fox News. No reasonable person. It's all made up. All of it.
Well, that's okay. Listen, they don't like Fox News anymore. They don't like Fox News anymore. They like OAN and Newsmax.
Oh my gosh.
Because those are more reliable.
I dare not trust the MSN. I'll trust Newsmax and OAN. Trump alone, Roger Stone.
Oh my God. That really is a song.
No, I made that up.
It's an April original.
Trump alone, Roger Stone?
Yeah, from Cornerstone.
Yeah, no, I know. That was.
Oh, I wrote it all out. I did a no, I already made a TikTok about it.
I was like, dang, that was really good off the top.
Sing the whole thing. I wrote it. Yeah. No, yeah. That came off the top. Trump alone and Roger Stone flew very easily. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to write this because Roger Stone fits perfectly. Anyway.
Well, happy 4th of July, everybody. The national anthem is not a worship song.
Indeed.
It is not.
And the flag is not Jesus.
Nope. But go enjoy some fireworks, y'all.
By golly.
Please don't in California because you'll burn down the state. Just say no.
Check out the burn notice in your area.
Yes, please obey all local laws.
Obey local laws. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, geez. By the way, anybody in Portland, sorry, it's been 115 up there. Good Lord.
Goodness gracious.
It's been crazy. But climate change, it's not happening.
Yeah.
All right, I think we did our work tonight.
Yes, we absolutely did. April, thanks again for especially for your transparency tonight and for sharing. We're super grateful for you and for all that you do for the Evangelicalist team and everybody that follows you and gets to be empowered by what you do. And we're very grateful for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, all right, y'all. Love God, love people passionately, no strings attached. We will see you next week. Anyway,
we're back.
Same bat channel, same bat time.
3. That's right. All right. Love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody.